Hello, Colin here. This video is part 4 in this series on React, file-based routing, static site generation, and server-side rendering. In this part, we'll be looking at a meta framework called Vike. And as it turns out, we've got a member of the developer safe place Discord server, Aurelian, who is a core team member with Vike. And he was kind enough to attend the event that we hosted on the 8th and answer some questions on the spot from the audience. Thanks, Aurelian. So let's take a look at Vike, and starting with the website, what is its positioning? That's a screenshot, but let's go to the actual website. And they say they're like Next or Nuxt, but as a do one thing, do it well, Vite plugin. It used to be called Vite plugin SSR. And so if you know it by that name, it's now Vike. And what do they say for positioning? Well, they, generally speaking, want to give you more control. They're a little bit less obtrusive, and they say everything else just works. Some other things I note that the features that we talked about and the requirements are met by Vike, and I've tried the things that I feel are good proof points. So SSR and SSG can confirm. They actually let you do client-side routing or server-side routing. Their default is server-side routing. They also say that Vike has no known bugs, and every release is assailed against a heavy suite of automated tests. So that's great. This is made by a much smaller team. It's not backed by a huge company. So given that, that's a pretty ambitious goal, and that's awesome. I think they've got pretty good documentation, given that it is a smaller team. As you're working with it, if your experience is like mine, I found there was the odd thing in the docs that didn't match what was going on in the source, and I actually used their examples as a good reference. So between the docs and the examples, I've so far been able to do what I needed it to do without talking to anybody or asking for help or anything. So that's positive. Let's actually go take a look. So let's file-based routing. Here's their page on that. You'll see they use a pages folder, kind of like the old pages router in Next. And any folder you put under there and put a file plus page, not just page, but plus page, becomes a URL. So let's take a look at that in the project. And I wanted the demo to be kind of consistent with what I showed you in the prior video on Next. So underneath the pages folder, there's a products folder. And underneath that products folder, there's a folder called index. Now, in their router in Vike, they ignore folders called index. This is straight out of the docs. It'll tell you that. So if you put a page TSX under index, it shows up like it's /products. So let's take a look at that. Here's the page TSX. And in this case, we want to get a list of products and we want to render them. So we're not actually obtaining the list of products in this page. We are rendering them. So products JSX equals products.map. So we're taking an array of products. And for each one, we're going to create a link to the page for that product. So the link will go to /products/ the product ID. So let me quickly show you what this looks like at runtime. So if we go to products, I programmed it to have 5 pseudo hard-coded products. So let me show you that. Let me show you where the data is coming from. I didn't have it fetched from a remote API like I did in the previous sample, but obviously I can do that. That's not an issue. I wanted to get this quick. And what I cared about was seeing how Vike worked. So what I did, I made this module. So get products is just going to loop from 101 to 105 and create 5 products where the product ID is the number as a string. The name is product and the number. The description is description of product and a number. So we'll get an array with 5 products. And then get product will return one of them where it calls get products plural. And on that array, it does a dot find and matches where the product ID equals the parameter, the product ID. So these 2 utility functions are kind of all we need to prove this concept. In the real app, you would do data fetching to the remote API like I showed you in the other demo. Okay, so it's going to render a list of products. Then to look at one product, let me show you the page at runtime. So if I click, say, product 103, it'll display the details for that product. Nothing fancy, and it doesn't need to be. You can tell I didn't put as much work into the CSS in this demo and the layout, and it's not as fully baked. But again, I care about proving how Vike works and understanding it and seeing if I can make the features work that I want. And so far, yes. So that said, how do we fetch that data? So first of all, to get the list of them, on the index, products index page TSX, this on before render needs to return the data that's used on this page. So what does it do? It's going to get called, and server side is going to call get products, and then it's going to return a page context object that's got page props, and in the page props we're going to put products. Now that is used here in the page. So these two files work hand in hand, and it's a little bit different way it's implemented than Next, but it's doing the same sort of thing. So makes sense. They give you a lot of control. This is their kind of their lower level hook. Works pretty well. And then if I want to look at how do I get one product, so this folder is a parameterized folder, and we'll end up getting the product ID passed in. So it'll be like /product/102 or 103. So see here, /product/103. So that's using this mechanism. So at product ID, let's look at the page TSX first. It's going to get passed in a product whose type is product. And I defined a product. It looks like you would expect it to. It's got a product ID, a name, and a description, so nothing too fancy. But that said, so the page is very simple. And hand in hand with that, on before render, it's going to call get product and pass in the product ID that it received. And so on before render, we'll go get the data and put it into the page context so that on the page, it can reference it here. So they work as teammates. So far so good. So if I'm running in development mode, whichever parameter gets passed in, like 105 here, at runtime, it's going and getting that product and displaying it. How about static site generation? So I haven't shown you, that's SSR, but what if I don't want a node interpreter? What if I want to do static site generation? Let me show you. There's a couple steps. vite.config.ts, the Vike plugin, this is what would be default. So I've commented that out and replaced it with Vike pre-renders true. So that'll enable, they call it pre-rendering, and they explain that that's SSG in the docs. And you need to put another file in there called on before pre-render start. Now what that's going to do is we need to tell it each URL we need to generate a page for. So it needs to know not just /products, but /products 101 or 102, 3, 4, 5. So say we had 5 products named 101 through 105. It needs to generate 5 pages, 5 static pages. So let me show you that. So on before pre-render start, here I'm calling get products. Get products. So that's going to return the array of products. And then we're going to do a map on it. And for each product we receive, we're just going to return a string with the URI. So it'll be /products/product.product ID. So /products/101 or 102, for example. Pretty straightforward. And so that tells it, here's all the pages you have to generate. I've already run a build. So when you run a build, you're going to get a dist folder. Trust me, I just did this. It works. You can try this yourself. Underneath now it'll give you a server and a client, but if I told it to do static site generation, then I just care about the client. I'm not going to worry about the server. So here's an index HTML that I'd copy this whole subfolder, this client subfolder, onto a web server. And there's index HTML. Under products, instead of, you see the parameterized folder name at product ID, instead of that, now we've got a folder for each product. So it went out and found the products, and each one of those has an index HTML. Pretty familiar mechanism, right? They've implemented it differently. And yeah, I would have to say I agree that they give you control. I agree that it feels pretty flexible. I'm impressed that with as little time as I've spent on it, I've been able to pretty quickly figure it out. Maybe that's because the concepts are similar to prior frameworks I've used. Maybe if you'd never seen this, you'd spin your tires a little bit more, but overall, I think it's quite well done. So thank you to the Vike team. And oh, by the way, I had sent a message to the creator of Vike, to Ram, and Ram had replied and said that he knows that the docs, there's a few things they want to fine tune in the docs, and they're really committed to doing that. So that's super. And that they're focused on their 1.0 release. They're pushing towards their 1.0 release. But well done, Vike team. And Aurelian, thanks a million for attending the call and for answering people's questions. Have a great day.